Hi, my name is Naiomi. I'm the Executive Director at New Phoebe House Association in Tacoma. Well, when we talk about multi-trauma abuse, we're really looking at a host of scenarios that occur in the lifetime of a man or woman. They can include physical, emotional, or sexual trauma. And when we look at how mental health is impacted by any of these scenarios, usually if there is a trauma, such as sexual trauma early in childhood, then a co-occurring mental health challenge begins to occur, whether it is anxiety from the scenario, whether it's depression, whether it moves to far more serious challenges that an individual can have as a result of trauma. That's why you see many people who might be raped in childhood and who are re-traumatized when they are in mid-year schools and then enter into violent relationships as they age. And it's a repeated scenario that occurs in life. And a lot of times we see that women who experienced early childhood sexual assault develop a mental health challenge and then may frequently also develop a co-occurring substance abuse problem as a result. And it's interesting with all of the statistics and research now that's being done, people that experience sexual trauma, particularly women, are often more subject to post-traumatic stress syndrome than even active combat military individuals. It's a higher, that intimate violence is a much higher perpetuator, I guess, of post-traumatic stress. So it can have a lifelong impact on any individual. It is so prevalent that it is shocking. They say that 1 in 3 women now have reported sexual trauma, and in the population that I work with, it is, I can't say 100%, but nearly 100%. And also in young boys now, the incidence of rape and sexual trauma and violence against young boys has increased dramatically. And again, numbers are being quoted of 1 in 3 or 1 in 4 children. And these children then develop mental health challenges and can also develop without support and help, because most of this is underreported or not reported. And then that violence can continue throughout their whole life without assistance and support. Fortunately now, in the homeless population, in who I work with, and in the United States at least, the stigma of mental health is decreasing. And so we're beginning to understand more about mental health challenges and brain chemistry and all of the physical responses. We've learned to understand more about trauma from, or mental health responses like post-traumatic stress, from military activities, from domestic violence, from sexual trauma. And so much more is being learned about these that I feel optimistic. And if you notice, there's more advertising on television that even says if you know someone who has schizophrenia or you know someone who suffers with bipolar disorder, there's help. So it's becoming more mainstream that help is available to individuals and not so much hidden in the backdrop. However, for the people suffering the traumas, who haven't been able to seek support services or come forward or even utter out of their mouth that they have had some of these experiences, it's still a very harmful thing that we need to raise awareness and help more people get access. I certainly think that many people in domestic violence relationships, particularly women, have what I would say a lot of heart in the game. They may love this person, they, for their definition of love, whatever that may be, they believe because domestic violence perpetrators are good at shifting the blame or the responsibility to the individual being abused, but they believe if they take action or they do something more right, they'll be able to change the situation. And if they just cook the right meal or they just, are present or do whatever the violator is asking, that situation can change. But typically it doesn't, it gets worse. And it's very hard for many people, I think, to acknowledge a failed relationship, or that the fear they've been under, or even the fear of leaving, because so many violators are stalkers. I mean, they prey after their individual. So having a place for safety, telling someone, reaching out for services, all of those things can help people get out. But it takes years sometimes for people to be able to do that. And sometimes they don't, and they die as a result. I think the point about the emotional, mental abuse is that it's insidious. It starts with little things. It starts with increasing control, increasing the isolation of the individual, cutting them off from friends, family, and to assert more control over them. And so the individual receiving that emotional abuse might not even realize that it's escalating or that it is increasing to that degree. And some people think that domestic violence is only being hit. It is not. And so I do think it's harder for people maybe to identify that. And I know in the groups of women that we work with, when we talk about what abuse is and what the telltale red flags of domestic violence are, sometimes they're very shocked that they were in a domestic violence scenario because they weren't getting a black eye. They weren't getting put in the hospital. But undermining their morale, their self-esteem, their self-worth is why it's effective and why it can continue for a long time. Well, I think anytime anyone is in a relationship, whether it be sexual violation, rape in a relationship, or emotional abuse, physical abuse, it can all escalate, and it can all end in a very bad outcome. And sometimes, it's not so visible until they're in a committed relationship. And a lot of times, women have children with or a man has children with the violator. And so it's more complex because they want their family to be intact. They want the white picket fence dream, the house, the fence, the husband, the children, all together in a relationship. And so it's harder, the more individuals that are involved for that person being abused to extricate themselves. And Sometimes the women will receive the abuse as long as children aren't being harmed, but when there's a crossover finally to children being harmed, that's the time that the person will take to exit the relationship somehow. But yes, violence is dangerous, it escalates, and it can end in death. Yeah. Well, first of all, most children that are abused sexually are groomed by the trusted adult. And then not only that, as the sexual encounters continue, they're also threatened in some way for their own safety or the safety of their mother or other siblings. And so that child does not report because, they then not only have fear for themselves, but they have fear for the other family unit, which the perpetrator is intentionally, placing that fear in the head of the individual to exert the control needed to continue the abuse. And now, certainly there's more awareness programs. People are becoming more aware to talk to children about healthy boundaries and inappropriate touching. And we recently did an educational offering about sexual abuse, and a woman who worked with perpetrators informed us that the number one way to protect your children against sexual violation is to let them know the appropriate names of their body parts, because a perpetrator is less likely to violate a child who can say penis or vagina or any of those things, because they know they can report to someone else. And that's a simple way to help, spread some education to children and through families. But the violators are good at gaining control and access. And even in families where it's reported, sometimes because the mother is in the relationship with that individual who's violating, she does not want to believe that, is passive in responding or not responding. Children have told family members who have dismissed it because they know Uncle so-and-so, or and that is then another layer of trauma put on that child, because their parent then has knowledge and is not protecting them. Well, there's a very, very high correlation between sexual abuse, domestic violence, mental health challenges, and chemical dependence and homelessness. And so, in the field of homelessness, we're always looking at all of these factors, because there is such a high correlation to these early childhood experiences, and they definitely ramp up to go hand in hand with mental health challenges, substance abuse, and homelessness. And we're always working to try to house so many individuals who've been compromised by mental health challenges and backgrounds of trauma. So it has a huge impact on people every day. First of all, it's like with anything, acknowledge that it has happened, seek help, seek support. There are lots of great counseling offerings available, support groups for individuals who have experienced all of these different things. And there's new therapies now that help reduce the impact of post-traumatic stress, medications, getting diagnosed with the proper mental health challenge, which can then help people who are coping with anxiety disorders, depression, bipolar experience, schizophrenia. There are so many new things that are able to help people who've been compromised by these situations. And seeking support, and again, support groups for people who've experienced these, just like with chemical dependence or anything else, can be really helpful to someone. Getting to a safe place and remaining in a safe place, not back with someone who's harmed them, getting to safety. The most important thing is that I have seen many people heal, move forward, can live fully and enjoy their lives, and can work, play, have healthy relationships with the proper help and support.